never been married, but it also is a conversation that comes up a lot in the church world. And I think that there are a lot of reasons in the church world that we don't talk about a lot of things. And I think that's another show in its entirety, and one I fully intend to host. But we don't talk a lot about dating. It's not a conversation that we have a lot. And so I wanted to be the one to have that conversation and to have it this way. So we're going to do this conversation, we hope, at least in 2 parts. It may end up being more than that, depending on, you know, how far we get with it. But the first part is today. Next week, we're going to come together with a slightly larger group and continue the conversation. But today we're starting with this group of people talking about dating over 50 years old. And so I just want to open the floor to anyone to say, when you think of dating over 50, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, firstly, I would say as a Christian dating, what does that look like? Because if I were to go back on rely on the Bible, which I do now, I would say that you have to find someone that, as the Bible says, it says, "Do not believe every spirit, but test every spirit." So you got to test the spirit, and you might not believe it, but you got to test the spirit of your significant other if you're dating, because as a Christian, you want to know that they're in the spirit, or you know, or you can lead them to it. They're able to be led to the spirit before you even start the date. I think that would be a challenge. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I would think, you know, as a Christian, if you're out dating, that would be a concern.
Absolutely. But for me, the first thing that came to mind is dating over 50 for me has been exhausting. I'll tell you why.
Okay. All right.
It's because I was out of the dating game for a while, and dating has changed. It looks different from when I was back in my 20s and 30s. And so it's been a challenge for me, because not being in the dating game for a while and being single and then now going to that, you're used to being by yourself. You're used to sort of like doing things on your own. And now you've got to, you're adding this other person.
You got to make space for someone else.
Yeah, you have to be, you have to pay attention to that person's feelings. You have to be emotionally intelligent about your partner. And it's just been a challenge for me, because I'm just so used to just like, I'm going to go here. I don't have to, you know, tell somebody where I'm going, or I don't have to be, you know, back at a certain time. I can do what I want, you know. And now it's like a little bit, it's a lot different. So
consideration.
That, it's been a challenge for me.
Okay, so we have considerations you have to make.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think, oh, sorry.
No, go on.
Okay. I think for me, dating in my 50s was amazing. And I have to say that because I was dating Fred, my husband. But when I first started dating him, I was in my 40s, mid 40s. So that gave us quite some time to get to know each other. So that's why, but we were still dating. So in my 50s, it was fabulous because we've already worked out most of our kinks, most of our, you know, getting to know each other. And we got married when I was still in my 50s, like 57, right?
Yeah. 57.
And now I'm 60, so I'm not in my 50s anymore. But I just lost my train of thought. But I think that dating in my 50s, I feel much more secure, more grown up, more focused. I know exactly what I want, where I want to go, and what I want to do. So for me, it's like I'm settling into it, like I'm nestling into it. So starting this journey in my 60s, and Fred's just 50, I think it's going to be smooth sailing. I mean, we have our, you know, we just had a fight this weekend, but we weren't really talking, but yeah, I think it's been really nice for me, refreshing.
Yeah. And as a man's point of view, you know, just you know, being newly 50, it just seems that, you know, when you're 30s and your 40s, you know, you're trying to figure it out. And as being 50, I realized that, you know, okay, so I'm more wiser, more stronger, and most importantly, having God in our lives, you know, just being, you know, the first, you know, just the guidance, and just having that guidance by God. And it's just a great feeling. And, you know, like for example, even if we get into an argument, we're able to work things out in a great manner. You know, we respect each other, you know, hear each other out, and we're able to work it out. Whereas in my 30s and 40s, you know, it was more erratic and like no guidance. And so just being older in the 50s I feel it's an advantage, a great advantage.
Yeah. Can I add something else?
Please.
Yeah. So I really didn't have any time in between. I was married before Fred and I getting married. I was married for 20 years, and very, very different. I have to say, like age, it says it all. My previous husband is 20 years older than me. And when I first met him, I was a teenager, like a very young teenager. And I worked for him. I worked part-time, you know, after high school for him. And I was so young, just learning. And so going through my 20s when I started my family, I didn't really even know what I wanted. I did not know. I just know that I had a house, I had children, I had the white picket fence. Everything was nice, but it really wasn't. I mean, great guy and everything, but I was so young. And as I was going through my 20s and my 30s, my facial expression changed. And I'm still not saying it in a bad way, but it's just like when you're in your 20s, there's such an innocence in your eyes. And then when you get into your 30s, there's a different kind of a look in your eyes, like, kind of a sort of a curious look. And when you get in your 40s, your eyebrows are like really raised high. Like, is this right? And so that's when my transition started to happen.
Hi, my name is Layla, and I listen to Boston Praise Radio and TV, 102.9 FM, and Boston Black News.
Ex-husband, who is wonderful, wonderful provider and wonderful guy, but just so much older than me, so much more experienced than me. And I'm just wanting to experience the world like, I don't mean it like that, but just I really wanted to experience it as a woman. And so I didn't have any time in between to date. I just went right into getting divorced to meeting him like the next couple months. So I never really got to date many different people. And like I said, I was growing in my 20s and my 30s, and I've always known God. But just being secure with myself, and starting to understand like what it really means to be a virtuous woman. I think it was even then, but I feel so much more, you know, fitting into that role now as a virtuous woman with God.
That's beautiful.
Amen.
That's so good. That's beautiful.
What Shelley mentioned though kind of brings me to mind when I look back at myself, like now I'm at the point where I know what I want. I have better discernment on men in general. Like when I meet somebody, I have a better discernment and understanding what's important. So when you're in your 20s, you're like, oh, I want the tall, handsome man. He's got to be 6, whatever. He's got to have this kind of job. He's got to drive this kind of car. And, you know, as you get older, wiser, you understand that, you know what, I want a guy that has character, that loves God, that has the character that I know is going to treat me right. I look at how that person may treat their parents, their siblings, and so forth, because that's going to be